Hello, my friend. I've decided to do a few more philosophers on evil. There were a few that were clearly missing. So the first one of those is Aristotle. So Aristotle believed that evil is not at all a mystical force or even an independent kind of force or entity. He believed that you had to look at this through the lens of teleology, which means you ask yourself what your purpose is, and then you do what is most appropriate for that purpose. So, to understand evil, you have to understand that what is experienced as evil is when your purpose fails, when there is a failure of the function of existence, as it were. So, as with Socrates and Plato, the good is a lack of something, but it is not in the same way, because evil is actually a deprivation of what is good. So let me give an example. If you have a knife that isn't working very well, this is an example Aristotle gives, it isn't an evil object, although it's easy to conclude that and to say bad knife. It's simply a knife that lacks the sharpness that is required for this particular purpose. Well, so is it with human beings. And of course, for Aristotle, the purpose of human beings is to achieve flourishing, eudaimonia, to be attuned to your demon, to live in a harmonious way, to live in a fulfilling way, a satisfying way, a virtuous way. His virtue ethics gives you the direction of his purposefulness, of his teleology. So remember, the other thing that Aristotle is really well known for is his doctrine of the mean. Now, that's very important to understand his theory of evil, because the mean is what is the harmonious in-between state. And you can be away from that mean both by being deficient in achieving what you need to achieve, or to have an excess of something. So, for instance, if we look at virtues, courage is a virtue recognized by everyone in the old age, and the deficiency of courage makes you a coward. That's cowardice. But there is also an excess of courage that's possible, which is rashness, if you like. It is recklessness, not being careful enough. And so it is with the virtue of generosity too. It would be evil not to be generous enough, to be stingy, but it would also be evil to be too easy in giving things away. Prodigality is the excess, is also an evil. So evil for Aristotle is missing the mark of your purpose. What you aim for is the mean, the middle, is that purpose that allows you to flourish and do best. Moderation in some ways, if you like, but not just moderation, because you go always in a direction of evolving into something more, in attaining more virtue, more control, more mastery over the way you develop your character, for Aristotle's ethics. So there are three ways in which you can fail in this, and those would be ways that lead to evil. One is, we've seen this before, acrasia, which is the lack of willpower. So the person knows what is right, but they're just not able to exercise their will, to practice their skills, to do the work. There is a lapse of self-control. That is a form of evil. Or there is the person who has been so corrupted that they actually believe that the bad actions that they carry out are good. So that is vice, and that is definitely evil too. For in some ways, for Aristotle, that's the most evil state, because the person has lost all their bearings and don't know even where to start practicing their skills in being a good person. Thirdly, you can be regressed or never evolved from an extreme state of what he calls bestiality, where human acts are no longer really within your repertoire. So this may happen to you because of illness or trauma, and you have lost the capacity for reason totally, and therefore your actions will necessarily become wicked. Aristotle took the view that wickedness is voluntary, because you can make a mistake and have one single lapse of judgment and do bad things in the world once or maybe twice. But if you keep repeating those same choices, then it becomes voluntary wickedness. You can't say, I can't help it, because what you have done is you haven't helped it. And you are still responsible. You have chosen to allow yourself to lapse in these bad habits. And now you have become what Aristotle would consider dysfunctional. So for Aristotle, at the end of the day, evil is dysfunctionality, a failure of you as a human being to use your unique capacity for thinking and reasoning and improving yourself, finding your purpose, finding the golden mean, and working carefully and patiently towards it, despite mistakes. As long as you work towards that, then you are overcoming evil.